Welcome to Not This Week, where nothing newsworthy ever happened. No headlines, no breaking scoops, just the things that never happened. No scandal rocked the Senate floor. No alien landed on the shore. No hedge fund guy did a rain dance. No celebrities got stuck in France. Stock market didn't crash today. No viral memes blew minds away. Our planet stayed silent on the moon. No coup attempt by afternoon. Not this week, nothing broke the news. No breaking points or front page views. We celebrate the stories that never took. Not this week, not this week. No hurricane spun out of control. No AI stole your very soul. No royal feud or a fashion war. No pun it shot at more. No coffee shortages at your shop. No viral tweet that made you stop. No moon walking on the Capitol steps. No headlines screaming all the threats. Imagine if the world just stayed the same. No drama, no chaos, no viral fame. Not this week, no stories to repeat, no tragedy, no tweets, no beat. Raise a toast to the quiet streak. Not this week, not this week.
A neutral Ukraine, the ultimate game of geopolitical Jenga. The paradox of neutrality in a war zone. Neutrality is a word that evokes calm. For Switzerland, it conjures mountain sanctuaries, secretive banks, and Red Cross humanitarianism. For Austria, it was the ticket out of Soviet occupation. For Finland, it meant 4 decades of Finlandization, living uncomfortably next to a growling bear. Neutrality suggests detachment, prudence, survival by abstention. But when Ukraine puts neutrality on the table, it doesn't mean any of that. Neutrality in Kiev's lexicon is paradoxical, the promise to stay out of NATO, married to demands for NATO-style guarantees. In other words, neutrality underwritten by the threat of war. The proposal, floated first in Istanbul peace talks in 2022 and still circulating in 2025 as part of ongoing negotiations, is simple in design and fiendishly complex in execution. Ukraine pledges not to join NATO, Moscow's supposed red line. In return, it seeks binding guarantees from a coalition of Western powers: the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Poland, Canada, Turkey, and Israel among them. These guarantees would not be NATO membership, but they would mimic Article 5. An attack on Ukraine would trigger collective defense. On the surface, it looks pragmatic. Kiev gives up NATO's badge, but keeps NATO's gun. Russia gets its no NATO expansion. Ukraine keeps its sovereignty under a Western umbrella. The war could, in theory, end. But geopolitics is not built on tidy compromises. It is built on mistrust, on calculations of risk, and on the willingness to gamble. Ukraine's neutrality proposal is not a peace plan. It is a high-stakes gamble, a towering game of geopolitical Jenga, where every piece is fragile. Each guarantee, each concession, each leader's promise is a block stacked higher. Pull the wrong one, and the whole edifice comes down. The question is whether this structure can stand, or whether Ukraine is building yet another paper shield, destined to collapse under pressure. Neutrality without neutrality. Let's be blunt. Ukraine's proposal is not neutrality at all. It is armed non-alignment. It is neutrality with an arsenal, neutrality demanding the West's backing, neutrality designed to checkmate Moscow. This is not Swiss-style detachment. This is a country bristling with weapons, integrated into Western military systems, demanding Western defense commitments, but without the NATO label. That matters because Moscow sees through the semantic game. A Ukraine neutral, but underwritten by Washington, Berlin, and Warsaw looks, to the Kremlin, like NATO by stealth. Sergei Lavrov dismissed Western guarantees years ago as a road to nowhere, Sky News. His skepticism still resonates in Moscow's corridors. If Ukraine can call itself neutral while hosting Western weapons, training, and guarantees, then neutrality has become a hollow word, and Russia thrives on hollowness. The Trump factor, America's new ambiguity. The biggest change in this geopolitical Jenga game came in January 2025. Joe Biden is gone. Donald Trump is back in the White House. This matters. Biden's approach was cautious, calibrated, reluctant to escalate. His instinct was deterrence without entanglement, sending weapons but never boots. Trump is different. He is theatrical, transactional, and deeply suspicious of multilateral entanglements. When Volodymyr Zelensky met Trump this summer, the American president said the U.S. would be involved in security guarantees for Ukraine. Euronews, August 2025. But what does involved mean? In Trump's lexicon, vagueness is not a bug, it's the feature. His instinct is to push costs onto Europe. He has said repeatedly that Europeans must pay their fair share. Already, his administration has tied security discussions with Ukraine to deals over critical minerals. CNN, February 2025. Al Jazeera, February 2025. The message is clear. Under Trump, guarantees are transactional, not strategic. They are bargaining chips, not ironclad commitments. Would Trump actually send U.S. forces to defend Ukraine if Russia tested the pact? The safe bet is no. He might threaten, he might bluster, he might deploy sanctions. But Trump's instincts are for deals, not entanglements. If Putin smirks, Trump may smirk back, then cut a bargain. This ambiguity is not lost on Kyiv. Zelensky has already rejected any notion of territorial swaps or peace for land deals floated in U.S. circles, CNBC, August 2025. But he knows the risk. Trump may one day try to trade away Ukraine's NATO ambitions for a photo-op peace deal with Putin. That is the American bloc in the Jenga tower, strong in rhetoric, weak in certainty. Merz's Germany support with limits across the Atlantic. Germany has also changed hands. Olaf Scholz, the chancellor who perfected hesitation, is gone. His replacement, Friedrich Merz, presents a sharper profile, more Atlanticist, more pro-Kiev, and less squeamish about arming Ukraine. Merz has lifted restrictions on long-range weapons, floated co-production of Taurus missiles with Ukraine, and promised firmer support, DW, September 2025. He talks tougher than Scholz ever dared. But even Merz draws limits. He has ruled out sending German troops, rejecting Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's remarks about European forces. Kyiv Independent, September 2025. He is still cautious about direct confrontation with Russia. And Germany's strategic culture, after decades of pacifism and dependence on Russian gas, cannot be rewritten overnight. So yes, Germany is stronger under Merz, but it is still half pregnant with fear. In Jenga terms, Merz places new blocks firmly on the tower, but refuses to hold it steady when it sways. Macron's theater, Poland's clarity. If Germany dithers less, France still loves the theater. Emmanuel Macron, ever the showman, has again positioned himself as Europe's indispensable statesman. He speaks of strategic autonomy, of a Europe that stands tall between Washington and Moscow. He embraces post-war guarantees for Ukraine, citing the pledges of 26 countries, Reuters. Yet his delivery is, as always, more rhetorical than material. France's military aid lags. French capacity to lead Europe militarily remains modest. Macron delivers oratory, not armor. Meanwhile, Poland and the Baltics remain the adults in the room. For Warsaw, Riga, Vilnius, and Tallinn, the neutrality debate is existential. They have no illusions about Russian intentions. They know that neutrality without overwhelming deterrence is surrender. That is why Poland has outpaced Berlin in military aid, and why the Baltic states punch far above their weight. Their clarity contrasts sharply with Western Europe's fuzziness. But they lack the heft to carry the tower themselves. They are the stabilizing edge pieces, essential but not decisive. Russia's smirk. Through it all, Putin smirks. From the Kremlin's view, the neutrality proposal is not compromise but camouflage. Russia wants Ukraine neutral on its terms, disarmed, dependent, excluded from the West. Kyiv's version, backed by Western guarantees, is the opposite, neutrality as a Trojan horse for Western influence. Lavrov's dismissive comments, a road to nowhere, were more than rhetoric. They were a preview of Moscow's playbook. If guarantees are vague, Russia will probe them. Cyber attacks, deniable mercenaries, energy blackmail, border clashes, every ambiguity is a pressure point. Putin thrives on ambiguity. He knows Western leaders hesitate. He knows Trump prefers deals. Merz avoids troops. Macron prefers words, and many European voters dread escalation. He calculates that if he shakes the Jenga tower, it will be the West, not Russia, that panics first. That is the smirk. That is the danger. The ghost of broken promises. Ukraine has heard Western promises before. The Budapest Memorandum in 1994 promised sovereignty in exchange for nuclear disarmament. Russia tore it up. The Minsk Accords promised de-escalation. They delivered manipulation and stalemate. Now, neutrality with guarantees risks becoming the next broken promise. Already, Trump's involvement sounds vague. Already, European proposals lack binding legal form. Already, Moscow signals contempt. Zelensky knows this. That's why he rejects any paper shield. He demands guarantees that are enforceable, not symbolic. But he also knows the West's track record, paper, not steel. Geopolitical Jenga, the risks. The metaphor holds. Each block is fragile. Neutrality is one block. Western guarantees another. Trump's transactional ambiguity, Merz's cautious support, Macron's theatrics, Poland's clarity, Putin's smirk, each is a piece pulled or stacked. One misstep and the tower tumbles. Best case, a credible pact, legally binding, enforced with weapons and will deters Moscow. Middle case, a fragile arrangement, vague and unenforced, buys time but collapses under pressure. Worst case, Russia tests the pact, the West blinks, and neutrality becomes surrender. Which case will unfold depends less on Kyiv than on Washington, Berlin, and Paris. Neutrality or surrender. Ukraine's neutrality proposal is bold, desperate, and perhaps inevitable. It seeks to square the circle, to appease Moscow's red lines while preserving Kyiv's sovereignty. But neutrality backed by hesitation is not neutrality. It is surrender wrapped in rhetoric. Trump's ambiguity, Merz's limits, Macron's theater, Europe's divisions, and Russia's smirk. These are the shaky pieces of the Jenga tower. Kyiv demands security, but what it risks getting is symbolism. The stakes are not just Ukraine's, they are Europe's entire security architecture. If neutrality collapses, it will not be Ukraine alone that falls. It will be the credibility of the West itself. Neutrality backed by resolve could deter Moscow. Neutrality backed by bluff will invite disaster. The tower sways. The players hesitate. The world is watching. The game is on.